Hello, everyone, and welcome, as it were, to this sort of impromptu stream. Um, this is both a sort of a test of my, I don't know, OBS skills, as I'm still practicing with that, getting ready for the big transition next week, but also to talk about something that happened today that caught my brain, as it were. And since it's more of a immediate current event thing rather than something that I'd take a couple of days to script like I would most of my other videos, I thought I'd talk about it directly. And I'm sure we'll talk about it tonight on Lords of the Night, but just the way that I've looked into this and how it struck me, I just wanted to, expand on it a little bit more. So, what is the story exactly? Well, it's kind of one that's been growing for several months. And so I wanted to sort of look at this in pieces as the events have unfolded. I'm going to jump back and forth between different articles here. And I apologize, I don't have like the entire article in front of me that I can display on OBS. I'm not quite sure how to do that yet. So it is just still images, but I'm going to be switching back and forth between them for reference points, if nothing else, so you have an idea of what I'm reading from, and you can go look it up yourself if you'd like. So that's where I'm going with this. It's a little rough around the edges. I'll do my best, though. This is live TV. But while I'm here, hello, Judge Death. Hello, Functional. Hello, Joys of Sorrow. Hello, Chicago Mike. Hello, This is Kyle. Hello, Point Curation. Hello, Zombie Teddy. Hello, Dean Ward. Monkey likes boobs. Yes, he does. Well, he's a married man. I'm sure he likes Lady Monkey quite a bit. Earlier, hello Raziel, hello cameraman Jay, Cynical Lindsay, I think I might have already said, and Way to the Twilight. Quinn the Cultist, hello. Also, I apologize that this took so long for me to get started, because I know I sort of posted it earlier, but it took me a while to get here because I was still figuring out all of the ins and outs. So sorry about that. Like I say, this is practice, so by the time we get to Lords of the Night, having to use OBS at the start of the month, hopefully I'll have a better handle on things. Anyway, let's talk about something that happened today with the Democratic, the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, all right, or the DCCC. Who are these guys? These are the guys that are sort of like the DNC, Democratic National Committee, except that they focus specifically on getting Democrats elected to Congress, representatives, senators, etc. So, where are we at with this right now? What happened today? Well, we have to go back a little while, at least to last week when the things were really coming to a head. But we'll be jumping all the way back to December of 2018 shortly. But here's what the situation was last week, according to Politico, okay? House Democrats' campaign arm is locked in a long simmering battle with prominent Black and Hispanic lawmakers who believe the party committee and its chairwoman have shortchanged people of color. Senior Hispanic and Black members of Congress have privately clashed with Representative Cheri Bustos over her personnel decisions, what they say are tone-deaf comments on race, and whether she's lived up to the promises she made during the campaign to win the chairmanship of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. Quote, "There is not one person of color, Black or brown, that I'm aware of, at any position of authority or decision-making in the DCCC," said Representative Marcia Fudge, a former chairwoman of the Congressional Black Caucus. Quote, "It is shocking, and something needs to be done about it," unquote. Bustos sought a meeting with Fudge, and Fudge said no. Quote, "Until they show me they are serious about diversity, there's no reason for me to meet with them," Fudge said. Right, so when you have a complaint about the way someone is running things and you want to see that thing changed, what you do is you don't talk to that person. That's how you solve a problem if you honestly think it's a problem. You don't talk to them. You have to wait for them to figure out what it is that you want before you'll talk to them about what it is that you want. Okay. Moving on. And Fudge isn't alone. Interviews with more than 24 Democratic lawmakers, aides, and strategists detailed months of frustration and unanswered questions about Bustos' efforts to retain staffers of color in top positions, boost Latino voter outreach, and hire firms run by people of color. They said Bustos was tactless when challenged by lawmakers of color. Quote, "The overall plan for Latino outreach seems to be some 1980s playbook, which doesn't work anymore," Representative Raul Grijalva of Arizona said. The DCCC declined to make Bustos available for interviews, but said, quote, "The DCCC has continued to increase diversity amongst our staff. Anyone seeking to divide our party and stoke infighting between Democrats at a time when Donald Trump is in the White House is undermining our ability to protect the majority," DCCC spokesman Jared Smith said. Okay, so the Democratic, I keep forgetting what all the C's are. I apologize, guys. The Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee, the guys who are in charge of holding on to the House for the Democrats and or trying to increase the number of seats they hold in the Senate. Chaos. Because the head of the DCCC is not giving enough focus to people of color in their leadership positions, or in its leadership positions. Well, okay, what did this lady do back when she first got this job? Just out of, morbid curiosity, what did things look like back then? Well, I will use the magic of OBS here, and let's see. So this is back in December of 2018 when she first took the job. Representative Cheri Bustos, the new Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee chairwoman, announced her senior staff hires for the 2020 cycle Thursday. Her campaign manager, Allison Jaslow, will be the committee's executive director. Okay, now remember that name, Allison Jaslow. I'm going to skip down a bit. Jaslow is an Iraq war veteran who managed Bustos' first campaign in 2012 when she unseated Illinois GOP representative Bobby Schilling. She worked as Bustos' first chief of staff and was recently the head of the Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America. Okay, so an Iraq war veteran who helped this lady get elected in the first place, head of the Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America, and became executive director of the DCCC. Okay, just remember that. Let's see. Bustos is also bringing her deputy chief of staff and spokesman, Jared Smith, to the DCCC, where he will serve as the committee's communications director. Smith assisted Bustos' work in the Democratic Policy and Communications Committee. And I mentioned Jared Smith in the last article. He was the guy that sort of talked about Bustos' availability and the people undermining the DCCC. Okay, now for reference, Allison Jaslow is white, okay? And Jared Smith is white. At least as far as I can tell by looking at their pictures. But that's all that really matters, isn't it? Moving on. 2 DCCC staffers from the 2018 team will also be promoted. Jalissa Washington Price, who directed the DCCC's Office of Diversity in 2018, will be the new chief of staff. She also helped manage the committee's $30 million year of engagement effort to connect with minority voters. Ryan Thompson will serve as the DCCC's next digital director after serving as the deputy director in 2018. He was also a leader in the year of engagement effort. According to the press announcement, Thompson oversaw a $15 million budget to build the committee's email list, which in turn raised $106 million for the DCCC in the 2018 cycle. For reference, Jalissa Washington Price and Ryan Thompson are both black. Because that matters now. That is important, just so you know. Okay, so when she first started the job, half of her committee staff were non-white. Okay, well, what's happened since? Well, something did happen earlier this year. Top DCCC staffer resigns after 2 months. Uh-oh. The Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee's new chief of staff resigned this week to pursue another job after just 2 months in the position. Jalissa Washington Price's departure so early in an election cycle surprised Democratic leadership staffers, but the veteran operative said she couldn't pass up a new opportunity. My time at the DCCC working to win back the House while advancing the core values of our party, inclusion, opportunity, and progress, has been an incredible journey. They have a solid team for the 2020 cycle, but other opportunities have presented themselves for me, and I'm looking forward to continuing to elect Democrats this cycle. Now, it doesn't say so in this story, but do you know where Jalissa Washington Price went off to for her next job after this? Yeah. Well, she's a chief staffer, or a head staffer, I should say, in Kamala Harris's presidential campaign. So she got a job in December in the DCCC as chief of staff. And then apparently, lickety-split, she was snapped up by Kamala Harris. So did Cheri Bustos do something racist that forced her out? Or did she have the opportunity to go help somebody win the presidency who she believed in? Well, I'm not a mind reader, even though some other people in this little saga apparently are. But I would say that is a move of her own volition for her own continued career and banking on a candidate that she believes in. Okay. Ryan Thompson, so far as I know, is still at the DCCC, running their email fundraising campaign. Now, of course, Marcia Fudge over in Ohio doesn't think that there are any black or brown people on the main staff of the DCCC because, Marcia Fudge isn't willing to meet with anybody about the issue. She just knows it's bad. Okay. So what's all the hubbub? What's all the hubbub? Well, it's what started happening today. Stories from the 29th, which is today, just for reference. But what happened today? Well, here's what started happening today. DCCC in complete chaos as uproar over diversity intensifies. The Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee is in full-blown turmoil. Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee Chairwoman Cheri Bustos was set to make an unplanned trip to Washington from her district Monday amid an outcry from top black and Latino lawmakers over a lack of diversity in the campaign arm's senior management ranks. Bustos' sudden return to D.C., just days after Congress left for a 6-week-long August recess, comes as aides and lawmakers are calling for systematic changes to the DCCC, the party's main election organ. Politico reported last week that black and Hispanic lawmakers are furious with Bustos' stewardship of the campaign arm. They say the upper echelon of the DCCC is bereft of diversity and is not doing enough to reach Latino voters and hire consultants of color. In addition, several of Bustos' senior aides have left in the first 6 months of her tenure, including her chief of staff, a black woman, and her director of mail and polling director, both women. Okay, well, first off, I'm curious as to why Politico didn't add that the first mention there, the chief of staff, left to go work for Kamala Harris. So unless there was some controversy behind the scenes or some kind of conflict with Bustos that forced that lady to leave or encouraged her to leave, they're not mentioning that here. But they're also not mentioning where she went after that first job, which is odd to me. But anyway, moving on. In the most dramatic move so far, Texas Representatives Vicente Gonzalez and Filemon Vela told Politico Sunday that Bustos should fire her top aide, DCCC Executive Director Allison Jaslow. Quote, "The DCCC is now in complete chaos," the pair said in a statement to Politico. Quote, "The single most immediate action that Cheri Bustos can take to restore confidence in the organization and to promote diversity is to appoint a qualified person of color, of which there are many, as executive director at once. We find the silence of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus on this issue to be deafening," unquote. Okay, let's review that little demand real quick. Nothing in that statement said Allison Jaslow isn't doing a good job. Nothing in that statement said Allison Jaslow has somehow damaged the party or damaged congressional chances of achievement in the next cycle. All that statement said was, you need to fire her because she's white. Let's just muse on that for a second, okay? The Democratic National, well, not the National Committee, sorry, my brain keeps wanting to say that, but members of the DCCC, or at least those representatives that care about this stuff, want to make sure that the right races are in charge of things. I mean, they mention here, appoint a qualified person of color, of which there are many. What do you care about qualifications? You don't care about qualifications. I mean, the person running the DCCC, the lady who helped her get elected to her position in the first place, an Iraq war veteran, the head of veterans, Iraq and Afghanistan veterans charity. This person isn't qualified. Okay, no. The thing that marks her off as should be in this job is the fact that she's white. You need somebody in there who's not white. All right, who's being the racist? Now, I have no idea what comments Sherry Bustos has said in the past or otherwise. I don't see anything about her staffing decisions since she took the job that says, I'm only going to hire white people, or I only care about blah, blah, blah. But then again, I'm not a mind reader. So I don't know if there's some unconscious bias in Sherry Bustos' mind. I don't know if she's, singling out certain people for positions or pushing others aside on the basis of race. I don't know. Nobody's pointing out to anything explicit about what Sherry Bustos has said or done. All they're saying is, well, we, the people from the outside looking at this group of people, don't see enough of the right colors, so obviously there's racism going on. Sherry Bustos is specifically backpedaling on her promises of diversity and inclusion. We're not saying she's a racist explicitly, but that's what we're saying. So now to solve this problem, we, the people who know that Sherry Bustos is doing things that are, we're not going to say racist, but they're really racist. What we're going to say is, you need to fire someone because they're not the right skin color, and put someone in place of a skin color that we prefer. But we're not the racists. We're not the ones in the Democratic Party who are promoting a hierarchy based on skin color. No. We're doing what's best for the party. Okay, so now, what happened today after all that? Just within hours after that first story was posted. Well, I will tell you, and it shouldn't come as any big shock, I don't think. Top DCCC staffer out amid diversity uproar. The executive director of the House Democrats' campaign arm is stepping down amid an outcry from Democratic lawmakers over the lack of diversity in the committee's senior ranks. Executive Director Allison Jaslow, a close confidant of Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee Chair Sherry Bustos, announced her resignation at an all-staff meeting Monday, according to multiple sources. Jaslow said her resignation is effective immediately. Quote, "When I was in 8th grade, I decided that my life would be dedicated to serving my country. I did that first in uniform, but since have tried to be a force of good in our politics," Jaslow, an Iraq war veteran, said in a statement later. Quote, "And sometimes selfless service means having the courage to take a bow for the sake of the mission, especially when the stakes are so high." Unquote. So in other words, Allison Jaslow did the honorable thing, I guess, and fell on her sword, in so many words, to help the party achieve its goals of diversity and conceivably taking back the House, holding on to the House and taking the Senate in 2020 by getting herself out because she's white. fulfilling the desires of people who don't want people of the wrong color in the wrong spot. And of course, not at all putting a big question mark over anyone's head who ends up in a position of authority at the DCCC who isn't white as to whether or not they're there because they're qualified or they're there because they promote the right optics. It's just... okay, here's the thing, guys. There was a time not too many years ago where, at least philosophically, if not by actual registration or card carrying or anything, that I would have probably associated myself with the Democratic Party. My knowledge or awareness, I should say, of politics really only came into focus after 9/11, when the political struggles between one side going to war and one side not wanting to go to war, and how would we do it, and what would be the safest way, and is it justified, all that stuff. That's really where my mind had its political renaissance, so to speak. And for the most part, I was very, very, very not a fan of the Bush administration. I was also not a fan of the Democratic Party sort of rolling over and letting the Bush administration do some of the things that it did. But that's when I became aware, like I say, of politics, or started paying attention. So for the most part, I agreed with a lot of the Democratic initiatives at the time, or at least things that I guess you would call liberal. Not the way liberals use today, but I voted in favor of gay marriage. I voted in favor of legalizing marijuana. I'm pro-choice, not pro-abortion. There is a big difference. There's a whole raft of, I'm for immigration reform because I've watched people that I know have to go through that process and how ridiculous it is. I'm all over the place, I think, as far as I can tell. We go through this stuff every night on Lords of the Night. But honestly, the fact that I'm watching the Democratic Party, who spent so much time, rightly or wrongly, depending on which individual they were talking about back in the 80s and 90s, pointing out, racism or racial bias in the Republican Party, and, underlining some of the philosophies or policy proposals from certain GOP members that let's not pretend that there wasn't a lot of racial politics playing around in the Republican Party for quite a while, if not for a very long time. If you ever want to see what I'm talking about, there's a great documentary called Boogeyman about Lee Atwater. Lee Atwater is sort of the philosophical grandfather to Karl Rove. If you watch the kind of stuff that he played in politics and the levers that he pulled to get things done for Reagan and Bush and such, stuff that just kind of makes your stomach turn when you start thinking about what it actually portends for people and race relations in this country, and how it might have set the tone for so long. But anyway, watching this and them caving. Sherry Bustos bending over backwards, amongst other things, trying to please what amounts to, I don't know how else to say it. It's one of those things where if you take the text of one of those stories and just did a find replace between Hispanic and white, vice versa. If it was if they were saying, Sherry Bustos, she needs to, the only way to resolve this issue is if Sherry Bustos fires her executive director and finds a qualified white person, to resolve this issue, to bring peace and prosperity back to the DCCC. Like, really? It's no different. The overall force of politics, so to speak, is no different than if you'd said that. There's now, and I suppose it's been there for a while. I just haven't seen an example as blatant as this, I suppose. But there is a racial test now for the leadership of the Democratic Party. I know. I shouldn't be surprised, right? All things considered, I shouldn't be surprised. But I was talking about this on Twitter the other day, that, and I know this sounds a little bit poetic, but pardon me, I'm an English major. I covet my disappointment in people. I really do. I don't enjoy being disappointed by people. I don't enjoy sort of, sighing in frustration at the actions of people. At the same time, I appreciate the fact that I can still be disappointed, that I haven't become so cynical, that I haven't lost all hope in people, that they could conceivably do the better thing or make the better choice. So there's that. That's the thinnest of silver linings I can get out of this kind of situation. All the same, this is what is at the heart. And every time that they cave to this thinking, they're giving up ground and giving up ground to an absolute regressive philosophy. I mean, if you're having a racial test, you need to fire executive director and put in a person of color. Okay, so your only complaint is that she's not a person of color. Your only complaint is that her skin color is not the correct hue for you. That says way more about you than it does about Sherry Bustos. Okay. So, yeah, anyway, there's not much more for me to say about this. Those are the events that have happened thus far. It's a sign of the times, more or less. But it also makes me very wary of us going into 2020. Because I've said this before on the show, and I'll say it several times again. I really, really do want a strong candidate to come out of the Democratic primaries. I really do want a strong candidate to oppose Donald Trump. If we're going to have an election next year, and, conceivably we are, I would like it to be an actual election where there's a choice to be made. If I had a Democratic candidate that actually convinced me that they were going to tackle the issues, that they were going to improve things, if they could actually point out and say, this, and this, and this are policies that Trump has imposed, or this is how he's, destroyed our standing amongst our allies or internationally, etc., and this is how I'm going to improve it, I'm open to listening to that argument. But if this is any kind of bellwether as to where we're going to be going on the Democratic side of things going into 2020, they're going to lose. They are going to lose. They're going to divide the country by race, which, if you think about it, is kind of what they keep accusing Trump of doing. And you can argue back and forth as to whether he's not, but if the Democrats are going to play Trump at his own game, quote unquote, they're not going to win. They're going to lose. Trump will have another 4 years, and everybody will complain about there being a conspiracy again, and, mass chaos, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria. I like I say, I expect more from people, apparently. I expect too much of people, apparently. Like I say, I value, I suppose, my naivete in those instances. Anyway, guys, that was just me venting and also practicing with OBS, preparing some graphics, that kind of stuff. Very simple stuff. I'm going to get more input from Satsu and other people as time goes on to hopefully have this down pat a bit more. But thanks to everybody for coming out here. I'm going to make sure I didn't miss any. Say thank yous to everybody. Hello, His Kitten. Hello, Brian O'Connor. Frosted Glass. Hello. Evil One. Hello. Bodacious T. Hello. Mr. Adam. Hello. Blind Press. Hello. Let's see. I said hello to those guys. BG. Hello. Mr. Monopoly. Hello. Ebony Williams. Hello. I think I said hi to everybody else. Delaware Fruit Zero just came in. Hello. Cryptic. Hello. And there you go. So anyway, guys, thank you for joining me for this little test stream / rant stream. I'll probably put it under soapboxing. That seems where it would fit the most appropriately. And yeah, otherwise, I will see you guys all on Lords of the Night tonight. And I hope you have a good rest of the day. Take care.